And what I want you to do today, my goal today is to get you to think deeply about your own life. So we're going to start reading in Leviticus chapter 18, starting in verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, I am the Lord your God. You must not do as they do in Egypt, where you used to live. And you must not do as they do in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. Do not follow their practices. You must obey my laws and be careful to follow my decrees. I am the Lord your God. Keep my decrees and laws, for the man who obeys them will live by them. I am the Lord." You know, the people of God, the Israelites, were commanded, don't do as they do in Egypt. Don't do as they do in Canaan. Do not follow their practices. Why? Why not? Why not follow their practices? What's the big deal? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to use the scripture to tell you what the big deal was in Ezra chapter 9. "But now, O our God, what can we say after this? For we have disregarded the commands you gave to your servants the prophets when you said, the land you are entering to possess is a land polluted by the corruption of its peoples. By their detestable practices, they have filled it with their impurity from one end to the other. Therefore, do not give your daughters in marriage to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons. Do not seek a treaty of friendship with them at any time." Wow. Why not do what they do in Canaan? Why not do what they do in Egypt? It says it's a land polluted by the corruption of its peoples. The impurity, the detestable practices, and it says from one end to the other. These countries were filled with corruption and impurity. Well, like what, you said? Well, let me tell you like what. Deuteronomy 18. "When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations there. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices his son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells, or who is a medium, a spiritist, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord. Because of these detestable practices, the Lord your God will drive out those nations before you." That's why. Does that not answer the question? Think of what they were doing. They were burning their children as sacrifices in the fire. Have you ever heard people say, I don't understand why the God of the Old Testament was so wrathful and angry at people. You ever heard that? You ever asked that question? There's your answer. They're wicked. They were doing horrible things. Witchcraft, spells, sorcery, divination, trying to predict the future, consulting the dead. Some pretty detestable practices in the eyes of God. And this whole sacrifice your sons and daughters in the fire thing, Jeremiah 7:31 says that God did not command it, nor did it ever even enter his mind. That's human invention. Why not learn to imitate them? Why not do as they do in these lands? Well, I'll tell you why. Psalm 106. "They mingled with the nations and adopted their customs. They worshipped their idols, which became a snare to them. So the Israelites now. They sacrificed their sons and daughters to demons. They shed innocent blood, the blood of their sons and daughters, whom they sacrificed to idols, the idols of Canaan, and the land was desecrated by their blood. They defiled themselves by what they did. By their deeds they prostituted themselves. Therefore the Lord was angry with his people and abhorred his inheritance." Wow. The people of God became like the people of the world. Do you see that? Just as evil, just as bad. Offering their children as sacrifices. They were told, don't mingle, don't intermarry, don't befriend, don't buddy up, don't snuggle up to these people. Why? Because you're going to become just like them. And that's exactly what happened? The danger for them, brothers and sisters, was that they would become like the people around them.
Yeah.
The danger, and it happened, the danger for us today is the exact same thing.
Yeah.
We can become like the people around us. But you may say, no, wait a minute. Our society is not that bad. I don't love anybody sacrificing their sons and daughters in the fire. Okay, I'll grant you that one. But everything else that they're doing, people do today. You think, oh, we're not all bad in this world today. Are you kidding me? Open your eyes, look at the news just for 24 hours. And you'll go, yeah, it's a pretty wicked world. Tell me if this does not sound like the world today. This is Jesus. What comes out of a man is what makes him unclean. For from within, out of men's hearts, come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside a man and make him unclean. Is that today?
Yeah.
Or is that just back then? The acts of the sinful nature are obvious. Sexual immorality. By the way, guys, that's anything outside of marriage to a man and a woman. That's what the Bible defines. Sexual immorality, impurity and debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. In case you missed anything, I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. You know, that stuff is as prevalent today as it ever has been. Am I wrong on this, or am I right? It's just as prevalent. And by the way, did you see the warning? Those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. If any of this stuff is in our hearts and lives, we got to get rid of it. We need to deal with it. How bad is it? I'll tell you how bad. They become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, depravity. They're full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. They're gossips, slanderers, God-haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. Well, I think that's today. They disobey their parents. They're senseless, faithless, heartless. By the way, did you young guys hear that one? They disobey their parents. They're saying, they're senseless, faithless, heartless, ruthless. Although they know that God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these things, these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. And it goes on and on. I won't even take the time to read this one. There are terrible times. And I'll say it once more, that this life, this mentality, this thinking, this pollution of heart and soul is just as prevalent today as it ever has been. We just mask it better. We hide it better. We bury our heads in the sand a little better than they did. By the way, let me have just a quick aside here. Have you ever accusingly said to God, why does He allow blank? Why does God allow all the evil? You ever done that? I know lots of people that do. I'm not going to be a believer, God, because God, if He were a good God, He wouldn't allow this stuff to happen. You ever heard that one? I'll tell you what, don't ever accusingly say that, because the problem is not man, it's not God's, it's man's. Check this out. Second wisest man who ever lived said this, "This only have I found, God made mankind upright, but men have gone in search of other schemes." That's the problem. It's not God. Don't blame Him. We took the free will He gave us, we perverted it, and we went in search of many schemes and sin. We chose sin. So let's put the blame where it belongs, okay? Gave us the free will, we chose to do what we wanted to with it. The hearts of men, moreover, are full of evil, and there's madness in their hearts while they live. It's what we've chosen. So here it is. Here's the issue. The threat to our hearts, minds, souls, thinking is every bit as real now as it ever has been in the history of the earth. The greatest life and death struggle and battle we have is for our souls. It's a spiritual battle. And if you and I are not completely up or down, however you want to say it, engaged, let me say it that way, involved, totally in, and fighting, if we are not that way, we will lose the battle. The battle is for holy, pure, uncontaminated, unpolluted, unsullied hearts and lives, while living in a completely unholy, impure, contaminated, and polluted world. Can it be done? Yes, it can be done. And it's what God expects us to do. I'll talk about that at the end. You know, the Bible uses the term world in two ways. It's the Greek word cosmos, K-O-S-M-O-S. And it can be the circle of the earth, the actual physical earth, the planet, or the universe, okay? So when we're talking about world, do not be like the world. We're talking about something else, not terra firma. You know what I'm talking about? The earth, the world around us. I love it. I mean, I love sunsets. I love sunrises. You appreciate nature and color and smells and fragrances and all these beautiful things. That's wonderful. God gave that to us to enjoy. That's not evil in and of itself. Although it does happen to be fleeting and transient and will be burned up one day. Just a reminder. But I'm here to enjoy it too. That's not evil in and of itself. The evil of the spiritual world we're talking about is the selfish, sinful desires and philosophies of man who've gone astray. The pressure, the culture, the attitudes, the beliefs, the behavior that will pull you away from your devotion to God and to Jesus Christ. That is the world that we're talking about. That's the cosmos, the evil cosmos. The media, the movies, the video, the digital toxins of this world. You know, some of us in this room probably need a good digital detox. I challenge you to unplug for a week. And you feel really good. Purge. The world we're talking about is the sinful, polluting, contaminating influence around us. And if you and I are not up for this battle, we will lose it. Pollution. It's all around us. That happens to be physical pollution. It's pretty ugly, isn't it? Yep. What do your heart and mind look like on the inside? Does your soul look like that? Have you let yourself get polluted? Take a big, long drink out of that one. That's nasty. Hard to see, but there's a pipe draining all kinds of stuff out there. Have you let yourself be polluted by the world? Does that shoe fit? Like a muddied spring or a polluted well is a righteous man who gives way to the wicked. Have you given in to the world? Are you almost choked out by the pollution, the spiritual pollution of the world around you? Are you letting and allowing raw spiritual sewage to get pumped into your heart and mind? That's gross. I don't want to go swimming at that beach, do you? Have you been spiritually polluted by the world? You know, that sewage coming out of that pipe's coming out in a pretty dramatic fashion. It's got some force behind it. But you know, pollution doesn't have to be quite that obvious. You guys know what carbon monoxide is? It's a colorless, odorless gas. You cannot detect it. You can't tell it's there, and it will kill you. And you can get polluted by it and die from it. Happens all the time. And even the first responders who go in to help people who have carbon monoxide poisoning can die from it. It's that powerful. So when we're talking about pollution, it can be really obvious, or it can be very, very subtle. You with me, church? Are you letting yourselves be polluted by the world? You know what the problem is? The problem is yeast. That's the problem. When they crossed the lake, the disciples forgot to take bread. Be careful, Jesus said to them. Be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Verse 11. How is it you don't understand? I was not talking to you about bread, but be on your guard against the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Then they understood he was not telling them to guard themselves against the yeast used in bread, but against the teachings of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, their influence, their religious influence. Be careful, Jesus warned them. Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod. The world. Herod was a pagan, terrible pagan ruler. Be careful of that yeast. Why? Because it'll work its way into your soul. Be on your guard. Jesus says, don't you know a little bit of yeast works through the whole batch of dough? Question, how's your private purity? You know, it's one thing to put on a face in front of other people, a social display. But how's your private purity? Is it what it needs to be? You and I, brothers, sisters, friends, we will get infected if we are not careful. Like an infective contagion, a plague, a virus, a deadly bacteria, the world will infect you. Did anybody ever see World War Z? Incredible movie. You know, some of us are like spiritual zombies. We're alive physically, but we're dead spiritually because the world has contaminated us so aggressively. You want to be a Christian? You want to be a follower of Jesus? There is a calling. You know, God in His mercy gives us a second chance with forgiveness through Jesus Christ. Amen? And that second chance calls us out of the world. We know this passage. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God, that you may declare the praises of Him who called you out of darkness into His wonderful light. That's the good news. Once you've not been a people, now you're the people of God. Once you've not received mercy, but now you've received mercy. That's the good news of Jesus Christ. I can be forgiven. I can get a fresh start. The call is to be different. And that's the battle call. That's when the battle starts to rage. Same passage, 2 verses later. Dear friends, I urge you as aliens and strangers in the world to abstain from sinful desires which war against your soul. That's the word, war. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day He visits us. That's our battle, brothers and sisters, and the war is on. Whether you want to be in it or not, it doesn't really matter. You're in it. Whether you're a believer in Jesus today or not, it matters, but you're still in the war. You're in the battle. You with me? If we are not fully engaged, we will not win the battle. And I don't think the battle is taken as seriously as it needs to be by many people. 2 Peter 1. You have 2 choices, brothers and sisters, friends. 2 choices, that's it. His divine power has given us everything we need for life and godliness through our knowledge of Him who called you by His own glory and goodness. Through these, He has given us His very great and precious promises, so that through them you may participate in the divine nature, that's holiness, and escape the corruption of the world, in the world, caused by evil desires. So here are your 2 choices. Everybody likes lots of choices in life, right? That's why we like buffet lines and we like things like that. Well, I'm only going to give you 2 today. You can participate in the divine nature and escape the corruption of the world caused by evil desires, or you can participate in the corruption of the world. That's it. You with me? It's pretty simple, isn't it? That's the only two choices. One is holy, one is unholy. One leads to salvation, the other doesn't. And we got to make that choice. Disciples, are you living differently than the world around you? Really? You think? What do you think about? What's in your heart? How do you spend your time? How do you spend your money? What do you let your eyes look at? The shows you watch. What kind of games do you play? Video games. What do you let your mind dwell on? What do you really like when no one is around? That's the true test. Are you really set apart for God, or do you blend in with the world? Does anybody know what cryptic coloration is? It's also known as camouflage. And it's a protective tactic that animals use to disguise their appearance, blend in with their surroundings, mask their location, identity, and movement, to avoid detection and go unnoticed. Right? Now this is the easiest one of all. That lizard, except for his eyeballs, he blends in pretty well, doesn't he? It's amazing, isn't it? Animals can change their color to match their surroundings. Find that one. I'll tell you, the bug itself has part of its body that looks like a leaf. That leaf is attached to a bug. Blends in like you would never notice. I appreciate this one. I used to spearfish when I was younger in Tampa Bay. It's a flounder at the bottom. Look at the coloration. Blends in beautifully, doesn't it? They change their colors to match their surroundings. You can see it, but it's not bad coloration, is it? There's a dragonfly there. You'll never find it. It's there. It's you look at the little middle body thing in the middle. There's 3 owls in that photograph. But look how well they blend in. See, I wonder, brothers and sisters, if some of us are like these animals. We change our colors to match our surroundings. We're not the same people we are in every situation. We morph into something different. But what did Jesus call us to do? To blend in with the world? That doesn't show up too well. But there's an animal buried under the silt there. Did Jesus call us to be like these guys? No, guys. You're the light of the world. City set on a hill. Cannot be hidden. Are you willing to be different? Are you willing to stand out? Take a stand? Stop being a spiritual chameleon? Stop being a spiritual flounder? Lay flat, lay low, stay unnoticed, let my colors change. I wanted to get you to think today about your own life. We're challenged. It says, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's the challenge. Don't be conformed to the pattern of this world. There's a pattern. You know what it is? We enumerated it at the beginning. That's the pattern. And it's all around us, and it's in the air you breathe, it's in the water you drink, it's everywhere. We're commanded and challenged not to conform, but to be transformed. How do you know if you're not conforming to the world? How do you really know that?
Question.
Well, I'm glad you asked. Now it says, therefore, since Christ suffered in his body, arm yourselves with the same attitude, because he who suffered in his body is done with sin. As a result, he does not live the rest of his earthly life for evil human desires, but rather for the will of God. For you have spent enough time in the past doing what the pagans choose to do, living in debauchery, lust, drunkenness, orgies, carousing, and detestable idolatry. And here it is. They think it's strange that you do not plunge with them into the same flood of dissipation, and they heap abuse on you. They will have to give an account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead. Wow. They think it's strange that you don't participate in those girly jokes, the sexual jokes that all the guys do at the water fountain. They heap abuse on you. You get mocked for your faith. You're such a goody two-shoes. You're such a prude. You ever get mocked like that? Yeah. Goody. Holier than thou. You ever been accused of that? And you think you're so self-righteous. You know what? Bottom line is no, I don't. I don't think I'm better than anybody else. I don't think I'm self-righteous. And I'm not a goody two-shoes. But I'll tell you what. All those things at the beginning I showed, I've done most of those in my life. And I've had enough. They hurt my heart, they hurt my soul, they hurt my God, and they're not truly satisfying, and I've had enough. Have you had enough? I want something different, something more fulfilling, something that's pure and right and good, and I'm tired of the guilt and the shame. How about you?
Come on, bro.
I'm tired of the constant sexual assault, the media, the pornography, the blatant sexual promotion, the joking, the materialism in this world. The dishonesty and the hatred. I want to be different, brothers and sisters. I want to be set apart. I want to be holy for God and for my own heart and soul. Are you willing to take a stand? Are you willing to endure the mockery, the ridicule that will come sooner or later? It will come. Are you guys with me? Yeah. Now fall asleep on me. I don't get to preach very often, so don't fall asleep on me. In closing, we are called out of the world, called out from being like the world, from all the sin and the evil that we used to participate in. We're called to be holy. Basically, there's a lot of reasons why, but I want to just close out on two. There's two reasons why we need to be separate from the world and called out. Number one, that stuff will kill you. It steals your life, it steals your soul, it steals your joy. It messes up your perspective and your thinking. It messes up your relationships. It messes up your conscience and jacks your life up. Does it not? That's reason one to avoid it. Reason two, we're called out of the world to be holy, to be set apart, to avoid all that sin, not as an exercise in and of itself. Okay? So I can just sit in some pure, holy state all by myself. You understand what I'm saying? That's not the purpose of being holy and called out and sanctified. We're called to do something good with our lives. I want to do something good with my life. We're called to love people, the saved and the unsaved. We're called to care about people. We're called to teach people about Jesus and God's love. We're here to teach them the Scriptures. We're here to work in the harvest field, to serve one another, carry each other's burdens. And you know what? The world and the worldly stuff and all the sin so gets in the way. Does it not? I'm not here to do my will. I'm here to do His will. And we aren't called to be holy and set apart so we can spend night after night watching Netflix and videos and doing nothing for God. Amen? We're here to do something. Go back into the world, use your influence, and start saving souls. That's what we're here for. Amen. Speaking of works and service, we're here to do works and service. Speaking of that, you guys know this passage? It was He, this is still part of the closing, by the way. It was He who gave some to be apostles, some to be prophets, some to be evangelists, some to be pastors and teachers, to prepare God's people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up. Leadership's job is to prepare you for works of service. Your and my job is to purify ourselves and make ourselves holy, which then prepares us to be prepared by leadership. You understand what I'm saying? I'll say it again. My job, your job, is to purify ourselves, make ourselves holy, which then prepares us to be prepared by leadership to do something good. But you gotta, and I have to do my part first.
Amen.
I gotta purify myself. You gotta purify yourself. I can't purify you for you. You have to do that. And many of us here have not prepared ourselves. We've not done what we needed to do in our private lives. So when leadership steps in to try to prepare you to do works of service, you're not ready. Purify yourself. Let's get the holes out of our holiness. Amen? In a large house, there are articles not only of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay. Some are for noble purposes, some for ignoble. If a man cleanses himself from the latter, the bad stuff, he will be an instrument for noble purposes, made holy, useful to the master, and prepared to do any good work. It's time to cleanse ourselves, brothers and sisters. It's time for a detox from this world, is it not? Remove the dross from the silver, and out comes material for the silversmith. Dross is that worthless scum contaminants on the top of pure molten metal. It's time to get it out. You and I, brothers and sisters, we need to remove our own dross. We've got to get our impurities out, the scum out of our lives. Then we will be instruments made holy and made noble for noble purposes, and be ready to be useful to the Master. The entire Holiness Sanctification series that we have had, I think God is trying to burn off the dross and the impurities from our lives and our hearts and help us be holy. God forbid that this passage that I'm going to put up there ever be true in our lives. The bellows blow fiercely to burn away the lead with fire, but the refining goes on in vain. The wicked are not purged out. They are called rejected silver because the Lord has rejected them. That's a serious passage. The refining goes on in vain. May it never be, my dear church. In just a moment, we're going to take the Lord's Supper. And I want to remind you, all of us, of what Jesus did in verse 18. As you sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world. For them I sanctify myself, that they too may be truly sanctified. You know, Jesus fought a battle of holiness in his entire life, and he won the battle. He sanctified himself so that he could die as a pure and holy and sinless and blameless sacrifice for our sins. He set himself apart so you and I could live again. As we take the emblems which represent his body and blood this morning, let's remember the sanctification that he fought for, and may it rekindle and revitalize our desire to fight this battle for holiness in this world. Let's pray.